So today we've got big info on the new guard kits, a new Kasrkin squad, a new Sentinel, a new Commissar and new heavy weapon teams, and a whole load of juicy details about the models. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking about some good news for guard players, as I can 100% confirm a whole bunch of kits that are going to be coming for the Astra Militarum. As I'm sure a fair few have already heard, there is an image going around with a whole bunch of new guard kits in it, covered by the excellent Mordian Glory channel earlier in the week. Definitely a channel that I'd consider subscribing to if you do collect the forces of the Hammer of the Emperor. I'll link his video down in the description. I think I do have a few extra details on top of that, but the vast majority is also covered there. In any case, what we've got today is a whole load of really quite nice confirmations on a bunch of Cadian kits. I have seen a picture of the models in question, but I was kindly asked by the source not to share it at this point, basically because they said there is a non-zero chance of someone getting into trouble for it for leaking it, and I'm afraid I don't really want that on my conscience. I've got absolutely no doubt that it'll escape at some point, but I'm afraid today you're going to have to bear with me just describing the models in question, their war gear choices, and a few other juicy details from the kits. To summarise, the picture's a nice one of a whole load of new Cadians fighting against some Leviathan gene stealers. It very much looks like it's a publicity shot to show off a whole new guard range, and it's a very telling leak just with the sheer quantity of kits crammed into the image. There appears to be a new Cadian Castellan on the cards, maybe Creed, maybe not, a 10-man Kasrkin squad, a new embiggened and slightly curvier Sentinel, a brooding Commissar model, new heavy weapons teams, what I think is a new officer, and quite possibly a dedicated special weapons squad that's hiding towards the back in blur cam. I'm afraid I really can't confirm or deny that one. The helmets look a bit different, and I think that there's a plasma gun or a grenade launcher in there, but I guess it maybe could just be some Cadian veterans built from the new kit. So going through the model details one by one, first up we have the new Cadian Castellan, who I'm genuinely unsure whether or not it's Creed. My main reason for thinking it isn't is that it looks like he's got longer hair and no obvious big scar on his face like the current model. As I said though, because leaks can only be ever revealed in blur cam, it is just a little bit harder to say. Certainly most of the gear is pretty much the same though. The grey greatcoat looks very similar indeed. They've still got the dual wield holstered pistols, though this time the handles point outwards not inwards, and it looks like this new Castellan has traded out the cigar for a rod of office in the left hand, though actually the right hand is just out of shot, so I guess we don't know whether or not this new Castellan has kicked the habit or not. Perhaps the single biggest departure for the model is that on the back is a large icon which reads Cadia, so whether or not this new model is indeed the same Castellan Creed as before, it very much looks like they will be the Cadian Castellan from now. The base is a fairly chunky one, out to 40mm at least, and it's going for heroic rock on a fairly big scale. It's got a very shattered city, fall of Cadia type look, with a Cadian discarded helmet on the base. I think the thing that confuses me the most about the model is whether or not this truly is a sculpt of the current Castellan Creed, who, as per the law, was taken hostage by Trazyn the Infinite and added to his collection. Certainly seems possible enough that Trazyn could just decide to let him out and randomly influence some galactic events that way. No idea if he's just not been bothering to give Creed a haircut while he's been in the collection, or otherwise, and perhaps more likely, it might be someone taking up his mantle and heirlooms as the new Castellan of Cadia. I'm afraid from the blurry image I just can't really tell whether or not it's a male or female figure, I'm afraid. Either way, it does look like a bit more of an imposing sculpt than this classic one. The Cadian icon does look really quite big and hefty though, maybe dominating the figure just a little bit. Next up we have the Kasrkin, which are a 10 model squad towards the front of the image, and perhaps one of the first things that I noticed the most about them is that they're based on very different bases, pretty much pure black, maybe representing something like a spaceship hull. As all the rest of the models are based on the more standard brown with tufts of grass type bases, it does make me think that these might represent a kill team release, something that I was kind of expecting for the Kasrkin anyway, seeing as I think that that would be quite a good release for them and allow them to do a really detailed kit with a whole bunch of special weapon options. The squad picture looks like a really nice reimagining of these classic sculpts, not really all that much changed and still sporting those little aerials off to the right of their backpacks. Carapace armour with knee guards and armoured gloves, most of them having fully enclosed rebreather style helmets, a few of them having half helmets with the bottom half taken off. The lasguns are fairly long barrelled and chunky affairs with power cords leading back to the backpack, not really too dissimilar from the hotshot ones from the standard Militarum Tempestus, And within the squad it looks like there's 3 different upgraded ones, one with a Vox caster, a sergeant with a combat weapon of some sort and a plasma pistol, and some guy with a flamer. I think it'd be kind of unlikely in a kill team kit though if they didn't have a very generous amount of special weapon options and could do anything that the standard Scions could. I guess we pretty much already knew that the Kasrkin were coming from that leaked Auspex thing. I think I can see the guy who's holding that part in the image, though it's not a very good shot of him and he's standing towards the back with a big long las gun in the other hand. Next up, and the biggest model in this little picture, is that there's a new and sleeker looking Sentinel in the works. Again, an update to a fairly classic sculpt, and a kit that's gone back years and years. I kind of have slightly mixed feelings about the redesign on this one. The Sentinel sculpt is a bit of an iconic one, certainly not the flashiest model around there, but in a way that kind of feels very guard. The new kit does appear to be a dual build one. There's both a armoured and a scout variant pictured. The armoured one fully enclosed, and the scout one kind of similar to this one, maybe a little bit less armour plating even than this guy. It looks like it's a decent chunk bigger than this current one. Maybe not truly enormous, but I think it will make this one look fairly weedy by comparison. While this Sentinel is very straight lines and rather boxy, the other one sports a fair few more curved armour plates. The armoured one is the better pictured one, and it has a single horizontal vision slit, and the legs to me feel a little bit more reminiscent of Dreadnought legs, but still having the same sort of weird backward jointed knees appearance that the standard one does now. The cockpit looks like it's maybe been brought back a bit, so it sits a little bit more over the legs as opposed to in front of them. Otherwise, in terms of armament, the armoured one is armed with a plasma cannon, a hunter-killer missile, which incidentally doesn't appear to be the rumour engine one that's been out for a while now, and it also has a fairly chunky searchlight mounted on the other side of the cockpit. It definitely just generally has a slightly more high-tech and futuristic vibe to it, though I think it still fits in pretty well with the Guard aesthetic. Next up, we've got a resculpted Commissar. He's one of the models standing broodingly behind the lines, as you might expect, and it's a little bit more blurred on this image and not that easy to make out. The pose looks quite nice on him, just standing and menacingly watching his troops, bolt pistol drawn. The right hand side of his model seems to be largely wrapped in a big cape, and I believe he's still armed with what looks like a fairly long bladed power sword. Next, in another classic kit that I'm not too surprised they might think about redoing, is a heavy weapons team set. These guys truly are right at the back of the picture, to the extent where I was sort of struggling whether or not to tell whether they were new, but on closer inspection I'm pretty sure that they are. The 3 that are pictured appear to have an autocannon, a missile launcher, and one that's just a big mess of a blur. The autocannon appears to have the tripod configuration swapped round, so just the single strut at the front, and it looks like it's a bit more raised up compared with the base profile that it is now. It looks like the missile launcher is going back to a shoulder-mounted configuration as opposed to the tripod version that it has currently. And it does appear that the guy that's accompanying the missile launcher one looks like he's got a Vox pack on, so who knows, maybe you'll be able to upgrade heavy weapon teams with Vox operators now to give them some orders. Again, kind of hard to tell, but it looks like they are Arcadian heavy weapon teams. No idea if they contain other bits within the kits to accommodate other regiments. Finally, for cool new stuff, it looks like there's an officer with a command squad, and I'm pretty sure that the officer isn't just the standard officer that you can find here in this kit. It looks like he's got a rather new and cool looking power sword that he's waving above his head. I believe that the only power sword in that box is the rather rigid looking held bionic armed one. So my guess is that either that this is a new officer model that you can buy independently, or I guess they could be doing something akin to what they did with the Cadian sprue, and maybe keep the same base command squad, which I think is basically fine. It's a lot more modern sculpts than some of their other stuff, and maybe adding an extra upgrade sprue into the box so you can actually equip your officer with a bunch of interesting stuff. I was initially thinking that the rest of the command squad looks like it might be the same, but looking at the banner and comparing like to like with this one, I think that they're almost the same but actually subtly different. The pose is a bit different, the wings on the icon don't finish at the same point respective to the back of the banner, and those little grey rectangles on both sides of the banner also appear to be absent. I think that the banner is probably a new one, which would certainly imply a new and updated sculpt for the rest of the command squad kit. I suppose that would go hand in hand with the new officer, so he could have different options. Maybe a bit of a surprise with that one. I don't really feel like the command squad kit is really all that bad. Perhaps there might have been other things that needed an update more than that one. In any case, I hope some of that's been interesting to you. And again, sincere apologies for not sharing the photo in full. I just don't really want to be the one who gets someone into trouble and potentially reveals the exact place that the source came from. Otherwise, the two most rumoured things that don't appear to be in this photo, they're the new Rogel Dawn battle tank and the new Rough Riders or Death Riders, as we can see by this hunting lance that they teased earlier. Certainly doesn't really make them any less likely, but if they're both coming to pass as new kits as well, it seems that it's going to be a seriously good time for whenever the Guard Codex drops. That would be at least 8 new kits, and maybe 9 if my hunch about the special weapons was right. In any case, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly cover any more Guard leaks or rumours when we have them. I'm certainly looking forward to an updated codex myself. If you've enjoyed the video and you'd like to help support the channel, I would just like to quickly also mention the channel's Patreon page, which you can find down in the video description. Making all the videos to keep up with the 40k news does take a fair amount of time and effort, and if you are enjoying quite a bit, any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.